Starting early, I think, really helps because you're kind of understanding, you're listening, you're assessing what people are saying about these roles and how much they understand about it and how much they don't. And then you can educate these boards, your peer group, that actually this is not what a chief product officer does. This is what they do. And this is why they exist. And this is why you need them in your executive,
Yeah.
So I think being part of the conversation is very important. That's number one.
Hi, Nav.
Hey, B, long time.
Yeah, long time. It's been a long summer. So let's just take a moment, actually, to say this is a great day for working parents like me. I had a hot tea today, and
Oh, wow.
somebody
Congratulations.
the question first time.
Same thing. I'll be saying the same thing tomorrow. My son goes back to school tomorrow. So, yeah, I
Yay!
totally hear you. It's Freedom Day for us.
Yeah, it's Freedom Day for us. And listen, I know what a busy summer it's been for all of us. So thank you so much for joining me. Quick introduction again, because you're only my second guest, actually. Smithfield Smackdown is a podcast that explores the real challenges and opportunities that are facing leaders in tech. And that's in creative, tech and investor-backed businesses. We're going to focus on understanding the issues that surround leadership, culture, hiring, innovation, but we always want to have a focus on understanding and finding practical solution. So this is a space for some really honest dialogue where hopefully we can navigate some of that stuff, some of the complexities of leadership today, and offer our communities some perspective, hopefully inspire change and smarter leadership decisions. I've really enjoyed working with you so far. I know we haven't known each other that long, and I've got to know you predominantly through the amazing Women in Product community. So I hope we can get to talk about that. But to start, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, B. That's a great introduction. And I love the title of the podcast. So I love the Smackdown. I think that's great.
Oh, you were part of that decision.
Yes. I really love it. I think it was brilliant. And it was obviously good to have that dinner that we had a few weeks ago. I think it was delightful. So a little bit introduction about me. So my name is Namrata. I'm originally from India, moved to the UK, I think back in 2011 to do my MBA. It's been a very long time. And yeah, I started my career as a software engineer about 17 years ago. And moved into product management after my MBA. So I was doing pure tech work for about 3 or 4 years globally, and then moved into product in 2012, 2013, around that time. And my journey in product has been amazing. I mean, I've been extremely fortunate. I think I got to work with some amazing leaders, very, very good brands, and a really diverse portfolio in terms of sectors, types of products, and, things like that. So yeah, it's been an amazing career. I became a chief product officer in 2020 for the first time. So kind of the journey from PM to CPO took me like 8 years, so it was very fast. Which has positives and negatives. We can discuss that, but for me, it was very fast, almost too fast, I would say. Which means that I've been thrown into various roles and various situations without much preparation, I would say. So that had a lot of self-learning along the way. I'm also a mom of 2 little boys. One is 7.5. The second one is 2.5. They are small. They are full of life. I'm very energetic. They are 5x of me, so you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's a very, very active and loud house in general. And I also have a husband. We've been together since college. So that's kind of in a nutshell of, where I am as a person and as, my career. I also do, apart from my exec work, I also do a lot of non-exec work. So I sit on 3 boards at the moment. And I also do a bunch of advisory work with SaaS businesses, consulting companies. Started working with a bunch of PE funds and M&A advisory funds as well. So kind of starting to go plural step by step. I think starting this year, I've really kind of thought about the whole plural career and very excited about next few years, to see where it takes me.
Awesome. Well, look, I love your energy. I don't know how you find all the hours in the day to do everything that you do and manage 2 kids. I had a question for you about leadership. And so it's really interesting to hear a little bit about your story. I want to know a bit more about your sort of first challenge in leadership in your career.
So I've been pushed into management, I think, very early on in my life. So my first
Why
job,
do you think that was?
I think it's the personality to a certain extent, because I'm a go-getter and I'm a natural leader. I mean, I've been leading since I was in primary school.
Mm.
Like I'm the girl who would raise the hand. I'm the one who would take, just try to organize people.
Yeah. You told me a story, didn't you? Told me a story, didn't you, when we were at dinner about your mum saying you've always been like this?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, nobody's surprised if you ask, my school friends or my school teachers or my family about anything that I do, they're never surprised because they're like, you're just the same person. You're just a bigger in size now. Nothing
Great.
else has changed really. But I think I don't, yeah. So it's quite consistent that way, with my school
Mm.
friends and teachers and things like that. So I would say quite ambitious parents. I come from an Indian family. So again, Indian parents tend to be quite pushy, as you know, whether it's for good or
Yeah.
bad. I think for me, I think the push helped, I think to a large extent, because I have been pushed into different things by my parents, mainly to kind of build that confidence early on in my life,
Yeah.
which I think it
And
has.
so that,
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say that sort of passion has developed into you being then pushed into, like you said, sort of management and leadership opportunities really early. So where was the challenge in that for you?
Challenge for me, I think, first of all, I feel everything has a time and place. So sometimes you see this young kind of a go-getter who gets things done, who's super active, and you want to feel like giving them more responsibilities. And that's what happened to me,
Yeah.
actually. A lot of my managers were simply impressed with my energy and the fact that I was very determined, very positive, and I got given more and more remit, like more stuff to do. But also kind of you learn yourself a lot of times, right? Because there is no template, there is no blueprint. I mean, leadership still,
Mm.
in spite of, I've been to business school, I've done leadership program, I've done lots of things, but still, leadership is something nobody can actually teach you. People can guide you, people can role model, but you
Yeah.
need to find your own paths and you need to find your own brand of leadership in a way,
Yeah.
So I think for
Could you
me,
describe yours?
sorry?
Could you describe yours?
I think mine, I always say, my classic kind of interview answer, because this is a very common interview answer, right? What's your leadership
Mm.
style? So, my kind of typical interview answer since my MBA days is I say I'm a very democratic leader. And that is like in textbook terms, that's called the participative style of leadership. So there's like 4 or 5
Mm.
different styles as per if you look at the whole literature around leadership. So
Mhm.
I decide, I'm very much, I believe in the participative style, which in kind of common terms you can call it like democratic leadership or whatever. But I'm truly am exactly like that because I'm a millennial. I think millennial leadership styles tend to be a little bit different from the generations before us, generations after us, I would say. Each generation bring their own style in the
Yeah.
way they manage people and do things. I think for me, it's always been skills, merit always comes first for me. I think that's number one. Everything else, like even when I hire people, for example, I look for capability. I don't look for the age or the gender or how many years
Mm.
of experience on the CV. Because honestly, if people had to judge me on the number of years of experience, I would have never got any job.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly, because I feel like
That's quite an old-fashioned way, isn't it,
yeah,
to look at things? I'm happy that people have stopped looking at things in that way, and I
yeah,
think technology actually has been, one of the reasons
yeah.
because actually it doesn't really matter that much what you did 20 years ago anymore.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But things have changed a lot. And obviously, being in recruitment, you probably have seen that change, isn't it? Because even like 15 years ago, I remember when I graduated, after MBA, I think the world was still quite different. This is back in 2012, 2013, where, nobody expected people to stay in one job for for the whole lifetime. But if you switch jobs too many times, you were kind of looked down upon in a way.
Mm.
And it's the same thing. Switching sectors was almost unthinkable. Like people don't switch sectors. They stick to banking for their whole life, or they stick to
Yeah.
telco or
Yeah.
media or, maybe e-commerce or whatever, right? But like I've switched sectors 5, 6 times, and it's a risk. It's a massive risk. I had people commenting, in fact, like, oh, we don't know what you're doing, or like, why are you never happy or satisfied with one thing? Because, you keep switching things. But I think that just part of my personality because I just feel like there's not enough time. I just feel I have to do so many things. There's not enough time in my life.
Brilliant. What a great attitude to have, though. Because that makes you inquisitive and makes
Yeah.
you like risk averse, and I think that's great. But I do want to come back to the leadership question.
Yeah.
Like, can you remember the first challenging leadership
Yes.
sort of
I
thing
I
that
do.
you?
I do. And it brings a smile on my face because I think So this is back in 2015, I think, and where I joined a company called Babylon Health, and it was fascinating. I was working at a media company before that, so it was a American media business with offices in London and a kind of media production, etc. And then I mean, everything was different, right? The way I dressed, the way everything, it was a complete different ball game. It was a B2B company. And then I got hired, well, I got the opportunity to interview for Babylon. And Babylon was one of the hottest names back then in the startup world. And I had never worked in a startup. I don't know what a startup even looks like. And
Mm.
my whole world is very enterprisey. Like people I know are all working in big banks or mega organizations. Like nobody in my friend circle knows what a startup actually means. And then I got a call from a recruiter saying, "Oh, there is this role and, could be good fit." I'd never done healthcare before. So first time startup, first time healthcare. I had never worked in a consumer business before. So this was a consumer, back then Babylon Health was a consumer app. So I was disrupting myself in three different ways: new sector, new type of user base, let's say consumer, and then obviously, a startup, a new type of company, in terms of
Yeah.
size and things like that, right? Culture. So for me, I think that was a very disrupted kind of, I was disrupted in three, four different ways. It was an amazing opportunity, first of all, getting to work with people like Ali Parsa, who was the visionary founder of Babylon Health. So getting to work with him directly, getting the mentorship, the guidance, I think was probably something that I would never forget my whole life. And Ali knows that I do message him sometimes, just randomly
Yeah.
thanking him. So I think that for me was the start of an amazing chapter in my life, because after Babylon, I would say my career took an upward swing. I was on the up for many, many, many
Yeah.
years. And I think that Babylon was one of the reasons why I got promoted very rapidly, many, many, many times, because I feel like it made me very resilient. It was a pretty complex
Mm.
environment to work in, and we were trying to disrupt the healthcare industry back then, trying to tell people that, hey, you can actually talk to a doctor middle of the night on an app. Who would have
Mm.
ever
I was a
thought?
customer. I loved Babylon.
It was amazing back then. I mean, it was now it's commonplace, right? You talk to a doctor on the phone. It's not a
Yeah.
big deal. You do a video call. But back then, it was industry defining. We were actually trying to create an industry, right? So, and
Mm.
that kind of an opportunity as a product person, you get those opportunities once or twice in life. You don't get it
Yeah.
multiple times. So, I would say
Yeah.
for me, that is definitely a defining moment in my leadership journey. And if I didn't have that in my CV, probably my career trajectory would have been quite different.
So actually, kind of taking on that real risk and that challenge for you has actually helped catapult your career in a
Yeah.
direction and also giving you the confidence to know that you can do different stuff, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like you're really comfortable with different stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Again, you have to take the risk and you have to try different things. Otherwise, you would just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So shall we move on to your SmackDown? Because I'm quite
Absolutely.
excited to unpick this with you. Tell me your SmackDown.
My SmackDown is that product management is still misunderstood.
Okay. Tell me a bit more about that and how it's misunderstood and who it's misunderstood by.
So who is easier for me to say, I think. So it's misunderstood by most CEOs.
Right.
It's misunderstood by boards massively. It's also misunderstood by the investors. So the funds who own these different businesses, right? And
Yeah.
this is kind of across the board. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on a networking drinks last year. It was a board networking event, a really nice event with amazing people. And I met this lady who asked me, what do you do for a living? And I said, I'm a chief product officer. And she took her a moment to figure out what does that even mean. And then she's like, oh, it's like brands. You do brandings, right? I was like, no, actually it's technology. It's digital. And, I had to basically explain like 2, 3 sentences, what a
Mm.
chief product officer does or what product is as a discipline, right? And then she understood, hopefully. And then she said, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now I get it. It's digital. It's digital. So I feel like, but that's just a little example of how people just do not understand. Because when you say you're a chief technology officer, more or less people get an idea, okay, she does technology. Or if you say chief financial officer or CEO, or
Mm.
even a CMO, like people understand. I think the
Yeah.
job titles are pretty like self-explanatory, but actually
Mm.
product is not like that. It's still pretty vague.
Yeah.
I mean, so that kind of gives you an indication of where the market is
Yeah.
in general.
So if somebody asked me to say in a sentence what a CPO is, I hope I don't get this wrong because it's my job. I think it's like the CEO of the product.
Yeah, I mean, so that was a definition a few years ago. I would say, like, in very simplistic, I mean, it's a bit controversial. What I would say is, even within the community, so within the product community, the definitions are varied. Depends on who you ask, which part of the world
Yeah.
you live in, you know. I think what the way I describe is, a product person is the voice of the customer in the room, you know. So if you're in a room trying to figure out, create a brand new technology product or an experience or whatever, the product person in the room is the voice of the customer and voice of the market. That's what or a product person is, right? In very simplistic terms.
Mm.
Obviously, most chief product officers, they are not building products anymore. They're actually building teams, giving
Yeah.
vision, like figuring out what's the vision for the product, what's the vision for the company in many, many circumstances as
Mm.
well. So obviously, a CPO is not exactly a hands-on role. It's more of a strategic, visionary
Yeah.
role.
Of course.
But any PM, I mean, again, if you're not the voice of the customer, if you're not representing the customer in the room, then obviously you're not doing your job. So, in simplistic term, I would say that's the definition.
Yeah, I love that. I love that term actually. And so where's the tension in the room when, when you're saying that people think it's misunderstood?
Yeah,
And you've given some examples
yeah,
actually of where it's misunderstood. How do you do your job to make sure that people start to understand that? Because if you're the voice of the customer, you're for the better of the
yeah.
product and their business, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, but I think if you look at a typical boardroom or exec table, who owns the customer is a very controversial question always, right? Is it marketing? Is it sales team? Or is it product? It's kind of between these three departments in a way, right? I'm a CFO will never say I own the customer, right? So it's generally between the
Yeah.
CMO, the CRO, and the CPO in a way, So that makes things confusing in the first place. I think the other thing is product people, we build products, but we build them indirectly, right? Because we are not coding. We don't code. So we are not engineer, like, we don't do engineering work, right? That is under the CTO remit. Now, obviously, you're seeing CPO and CTO roles being merged a lot, which again, has
Yes,
its
I have seen that.
ups and downs, right? I mean, again, it has some positives, it has negatives as well, but that is also happening, and exactly because of this, because a lot of boards are saying, oh, but the product function costs us a lot because these are pretty highly paid jobs, but then they don't build, like, as in they don't really code. They don't, they are not
Mm.
developers. So, why do we even need them, or how many do we need, to kind of keep a company afloat and to make sure the company is innovative enough? So I think there is a lot of confusion around that. And one of the reasons why I'm actually starting to work, I mean, I've been working with boards. My first board role was 8 years ago. So I've been working with boards now, I think, for 8 years. So that's not new. But I'm starting to work with funds a bit more closely now, starting this year, because I feel like to fix the problem of definition and understanding, I think the problem has to be fixed at the top, actually,
Right.
So, yeah.
So you go further up the food chain.
Yeah, further up the food chain, because I mean, there's different reasoning for that, right? I mean, if you look at board roles, if you look at the whole kind of NED ecosystem, and I'm pretty ingrained in the NED ecosystem. I have lots of like part of various NED networks and all that. And I'm a regular in a lot of like a NED dinners or drinks and all that. And honestly, it's like I think there's like 1-2% of NEDs out there. If you just take the UK for a moment, there's probably 1 or 2% of NEDs out there who come from a chief product officer background. There are a few from a CIO, CTO background.
Mm.
CPO is pretty rare. Digital, I mean, my latest executive job title was actually chief digital officer, which makes things a little bit easier because somehow people understand when you say chief digital. I think
Interesting.
digital is the key word here,
Yeah. We've
So,
always had an issue with terminology in our industry. I guess because
always.
it's quite a new industry, right? I spent 30 years in user experience, and like for some people, that was some sort of dark art, and other people broke it down into user
Yeah.
research, interaction
Yeah.
design, user experience. So it sounds like a very similar
The
thing.
semantics thing. Yeah, exactly. But again, profiles of like, let's say a CDO, a chief digital or a chief product, these are minorities in the board, and I think that's where the problem comes from, because if you don't have enough people in the boardrooms from that background, if you don't have enough people, you know, who are CEOs from that background, obviously these roles are going to be misunderstood or less understood,
Yeah.
you know?
So
So,
what do you do? Sorry,
no,
did
no,
I
no, go
interrupt
on.
you then? I was going to say, so what do you do to sort of resolve that situation, like to get an understanding into the boardroom, into the kind of C-suite, to make sure that they're really clear about what you're responsibility is for delivery?
So that's a great question. First thing is, again, I tried getting into the board ecosystem very early on in my life. I mean, my first board role was when I was 32. That was very early. And I think I'm extremely fortunate that I even got considered for a board role at that age, because typically you're not going to see people of that level kind of, I mean, I was VP back then, but still, you don't see that many 30-year-olds in a board, in the board table, right? So I think starting early, I think really helps, because you're kind of understanding, you're listening, you're assessing what people are saying about these roles and how much they understand about it and how much they don't. And then you can educate these boards, your peer group, that actually this is not what a chief product officer does. This is what they do. And this is why they exist. And this is why you need them in your exec team,
Yeah.
So I think being part of the conversation is very important. That's number one. And the problem is most product people are not even part of the conversation. So from whatever I can do, like my 2 cents is being more active in boardrooms, trying to get as many
Yeah.
board roles as I get. I mean, I have got 3 now. I would love to get few more. I would love to have few more in the kind of coming years. The other thing is, again, I know lots of CEOs personally, obviously through my job, but also I'm part of a few kind of CEO networks as well. And again, educating the CEOs. I mean, I have a call with somebody tonight actually about this, is kind of educating them where the CPO role sits in their
Yeah.
exact table. Because a lot of CEOs are confused. They're like, do we need a CPO, or do you think
Yeah.
I can just hire a product director who can do a CPO role? And I'm like, no way. I mean, a product director is a product director. You cannot hire a product director and expect that person to do a CPO role.
CPO role.
So that
That's
it's
good.
again, it's an education, right? And then
So you've
lastly,
got to be a really good communicator, a really clear communicator, and you're probably a really good person to do that, because no nerves about it, right? You talk to them about what you're going to deliver and why it's important.
I also think because people like there's a lot of me, like a lot of people like from my similar profile who's computer science and an MBA. I think it gives us a bit more edge, I think, because, my early career was obviously in engineering, and I'm an engineer at heart. Like that's my main degree, right? So I think like an engineer. And in my younger days, I would say I was very left brain, very, very left brain. So kind of that's my training, very maths and science,
Hmm.
right? So more to do about very binary thinking as well. As I've grown older, I think I'm somewhere in the middle right now.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I know. And also like the business education teaches you a lot of things, user behavior and kind of things like that. So I feel like from my perspective, an engineer who transitioned into product management and more into business side of the world now, I think I have seen that how these type of changes happen. And I can see the strengths and weaknesses of these roles, in the
Mm.
exec team, right? Like even the flavors of CPOs, there's different flavors of CPOs. You've got CPOs who come from engineering background like myself. You've got CPOs who come from marketing background. You've got
Yeah.
CPOs who come from kind of psychology design type of backgrounds. So again, you've got tons of different types of flavors of them in the market. And I feel like every company, it's not one size fits all. So depends on the business. You might need a different flavor of a CPO.
I think that's super interesting, and I think I've seen that in lots of different roles too, right? With the business, what their requirements are quite different depending on the product and the
Yeah.
size of the team or location and all sorts of things. So when you're hiring, what do you look for? Have you got
When
some tips for people out there that are looking for work at the moment?
Yes,
What kind of things do you
and
look for?
there's so many people looking for work, and I'm totally aware of it. I think especially senior people, because those roles are so hard to come by, isn't it? I think for me, the first thing is curiosity. I like people who are curious, who ask questions,
Yeah.
and not asking questions for the sake of asking questions, but asking because you genuinely care about the company or the product. So for me,
Yeah.
that is number one, I think. Also like people who are happy to take on more in life in general, like who are not afraid to stretch themselves. Like, when
Yeah.
you're assigning goals to your team, right? Objectives, goals annually, right? There are certain people who are excited about stretch goals. They'll actually ask you for stretch objectives or stretch goals. They'll be like, where are my stretch goals? Then there are a few who really don't like them, because they're like, oh, I can't do more than what I'm already doing. I'm so overworked, stuff like that. So I feel like people who like that kind of stretch objectives or stretch goals, I feel
Mm.
like they are the ones who go the extra mile, I think, to make you
Yeah.
proud and to make the company proud. So for me, I think that is, very, very important. I think the last thing is people who are kind of lifelong learners. I like people who
Absolutely.
say, I've invested in myself, like I've just taken this course, I'm taking this course at the moment after work or whatever. I think for me, that is such a positive because there's a lot of people who don't do that. They don't invest in themselves because
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'm too busy.
Mm. It's wonderful though, isn't it? Because I think in this world as well, the stuff that we need to know to do our jobs
Yeah.
doesn't come from your 9 to 5 quite
No,
often.
no.
It's from the podcasts and the news and the courses and the reading and the books that you read. All of that stuff is really important. So I think those are great tips.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm quite geeky I'm very academic. Growing up as a child,
Yeah.
I was very academic. So I think that is something ingrained in me. But I love to read. I love to learn. I mean, like Sundays, and I think a lot of people who know me, they know this. Like, so my Sundays are actually like learning days for me. So I would either listen to an episode from Masterclass, who's a L&D partner for us for
Yeah.
your track.
Hmm.
Or I would listen to an episode of Acquired, which is one of my favorite podcasts in the world. Or I would listen to some other kind of 1 or 3 podcasts that I really love. I listen a lot rather than reading. I don't have the time, So I do listen and learn quite a lot.
Yeah.
But like Sundays for me are kind of the learning days. At least 2, 3 hours I invest in learning.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, with 2 kids and a full-on career and a million other things, if I can do it, I'm sure a lot of other people can do
Yeah.
it as well.
I'm looking at the time and thinking I want to move on a little bit, but actually I don't want to leave this podcast without talking to you about the amazing communities that you have
Yeah.
developed and the kind of amazing network and energy at those. I've been really lucky to attend a few of them. So I really want to ask you a little bit more about the story around CPO Track, which
Yeah.
is one of the events that you run, but also Women in Product, which are like sort of flagship products in London.
Yes.
And the team love coming to them. I love coming to them. So I just want to know a bit more about the story.
Yeah, so I mean, very briefly, Women in Product came first. And it came from the heart. I mean, both communities are heart, like it's all heart. But Women in Product, I actually started in 2020 as a LinkedIn group, because I got my first CPO role in 2020. It was a pretty big year for me. I turned 35 that year. So it was just, I had this feeling that I was like growing up, I felt like a grown up all of a sudden. Got the CPO role. And I remember hearing from a lot of people that there's not that many female CPOs in London, especially in the UK, it's
Right.
numbered, like it's not a huge amount. And I felt like, okay, I just have to do something to help women out there, women who are in product, who are aspiring to be in leadership roles one day, but might not have enough role models. So that's how I started it, just to inspire the next generation of talent, especially.
Mm.
So that's how it started. It has grown a lot. We are about 4,000 plus members now.
Amazing. And they're all still in the UK?
They are all we do have members from US and Europe, Dubai, but we never promote internationally. Women in Product UK, and that's why it's Women in Product UK. I always wanted to keep it as a local brand. Also kind of my gift to the UK in a way, because, I'm an immigrant. I came here from another country, and the UK has helped me a lot in building my career. Obviously, it's home now for me.
Yeah.
So I just felt like it's my little tribute, my little gift.
It's such a warm community. I've loved coming to those events. I mean, they're a little bit like a party, aren't they?
Yeah,
But
it is
with
a bit of a
with
party.
that with
Yeah,
John
but
Lennon.
that comes from me, I think. Because for me, like I truly believe in life is a party kind of that's like our motto for me and my husband. That's how we live our lives. It's a bit of a life is a party. I think that's kind of our goal in life. Otherwise it gets boring, it gets monotonous, right? And you lose interest. So that's why our events are like that. I think a lot of people don't realize that it's actually a professional network. It feels like a group of friends,
Yeah.
reuniting for a good cause, right? So that is Women in Product. And then CPO Track, I started only last year. It's actually so new. A
I
lot of
didn't
people,
realize that.
it's very young. Yeah. So we launched the brand November 2023. It was just the brand launch, like the logo, the website, the ethos and all that. But the actual community only started spring last year. I think it was around May last year that the community actually started. So we are just one plus something years old now. That started because I, as a leader, needed a community to hang out with. So it was my own necessity. And I felt like if I feel that I need a community around me, I'm pretty sure there's other product leaders who feel exactly the same.
Sure.
So it came through my own needs. And I wanted to, and my husband actually said to me that if you're starting another community, please open it up to all genders. Do us a favor.
Oh, good.
That came from him, that request. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, since you said that, let me do it. We'll make it all genders. So yes, it is growing very well. But again, CPO track, because from a number of people perspective, the ratio of CPOs, or let's say product leaders versus product managers, is almost like 1:5, as you know, right? And you can't build a community with 50 or 100 people. You do need few hundreds. You need a critical mass to make it meaningful, right? So I wanted CPO track to be global from day one. So when we launched it, it was not just like UK. It was UK, Europe, US, UAE. It still is very much all these kind of 4 different regions. This year, we've started doing international events. Next year, we're going to do loads of international events. So
Amazing.
I'm going to make this brand truly global.
Fantastic.
Also very different, both of the communities. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've certainly inspired a community of women. It sounds like you're going out there and inspiring a global vision now, which is brilliant. I'd like to say thank you for trusting me and for all of the support that you've given to Smithfield Search in its short life so far. But before we go, I did really want you to share something that you're most proud of in your career as a leader in tech.
I think at the proudest moment, obviously the products make you proud, right? But I think more than the products, I think it's the people that make me proud. For example, when I see somebody who was a PM in my team 5 years ago and is now a VP of product, that makes me immensely proud. It makes me proud when somebody, when people sign up for these communities, and I recall the name because I had mentored that person 8 years ago, when they were doing their MBA or they were doing masters or whatever, right? And those people have come back to me after all these years and they want to be a member. And I think that's the kind of thing that makes me proud, because it's the impact that I have made in people's lives and careers.
Yeah.
I think when we are gone, I don't think people will remember us for how many handbags I had or how many cars I drove. But I think people will remember you for what you've done for society and people around you. So I think for me, that is what makes me proud.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing so many stories with us today, actually, and being so candid. I've really enjoyed hearing more about your family as well, and your work, and your communities. Like I said, you might be the hardest working woman in tech. I don't know how you fit it all in, but thanks so much for taking some time to talk to Smithfield today.
Thank you so much, B. The pleasure is only mine. Thank you so much for inviting me.